Planning Commission, July the 9th, order. Mr. Jeff, would you call the roll, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Raymond Albert.
Present.
Linda Hayes.
Here.
Debbie Brewer.
Here.
Tommy Reed.
Here.
Ernest Potts is absent.
Okay. Has everybody had time to look over the minutes of the last meeting, June 11th?
I make a motion to approve the June 11th meeting minutes.
I have a motion to approve the June 11th meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes approved. Okay, we have a couple signed up for to speak. Miss Janet.
How do we know if this is
Just
on?
push it down.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly what the two things I'm speaking on is about, but it's on there. So the first one is for the 70th church. Since it's my understanding, and Andrew knows better than me and Amanda, since they are redoing the design and the plans, I want to know if there is a new traffic study that will be called for, since it's a basic reset. The other thing that I'm concerned about, Shells Way has one entrance for in and out for over 114 residences. Sitting here today trying to make a left to get out of my subdivision, I sat there for quite a while, which I know Linda's happy about because she said she loves that. I'm concerned because when we went to the neighborhood meeting, there was an illustration where it showed the commercial driveway is right across from Shells Way. And I'm concerned that we're going to have our traffic coming in and out left and right, facing left and right, and it's going to be really hard. So I was wondering if that will be addressed or whether or not it can be moved. The second thing, do I talk about both at once or do I sit down? Yeah. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and I just see the word parking, so I'm not sure this is appropriate, but we had an issue with the townhouses in Belle Forge where there is only 2 parking spaces for each unit, which means anybody that comes to visit has no place to park unless they park in the residence lot space. So there were people parking on Shells Way. I talked to Chief Chris about it. He was concerned that it was an emergency response issue. He did a really good thing and spoke to Danny Williams, and Danny put in another space for visitors. But going forward, I was hoping that the new plans, and I've talked to Amanda about this, that we can address that so that we don't have any issues with it. I could see where this would be a neighborhood fight thing if you have somebody parking in your space. So that's it, just a couple concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now, we'll consider the regulations planning book for 70 Church Street. Miss Alex, that'd be you.
Hi, I'm Trent Smith. I'm an engineer for Southern Consulting for the developer. Can I maybe address a couple of her issues real quick? You mentioned the traffic study. It has been updated. I can't remember if we've given them a copy or not. If we haven't, we're going to be, obviously, we will be giving them an updated traffic study. In regards to the Shells Shells Way, the alignment of the commercial driveway. One thing we have done is a right turn out only, so that we're not going to be having any conflicts with oncoming traffic from Shells Way.
Still gonna be hard to get out.
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
hopefully,
if I may,
Oh.
we need to direct
this way.
this way, if you want to talk about whatever, but it's your presentation.
Okay.
Let's not talk out to the audience.
Well, those are the two items, is we did change the driveway out is right turn only.
So ladies and gentlemen, this plan of 70 church that we've just presented is definitely different than the initial one that we presented months ago. The reason for that is because, again, the single-family housing that would no longer fit based on the setbacks that are required, and there are some limitations of WADC, and some additional things they were forcing us to do on the site and made the site not feasible. We've worked with the town, the staff, and everyone that we could to keep our commitment to Mr. Chappell of buying his property, but for what we're offering, we've got to make sure that the numbers make sense. We still look forward to building a subdivision that the town is proud of. There were just certain things that we were just unable to do, but we tried to make it as beautiful and as nice as we can. You know, speaking to some of the planning and council people, some of the things that were addressed was, hey, we want commercial. Yeah, okay, we want commercial. So we tried to fit as much commercial as we could to make it as feasible as possible for the project. We want residential. We couldn't fit that many single-family homes. The single-family homes that we did fit initially in the project was essentially made it so that it was almost a shed. The depth of the homes just wouldn't fit, so it made it unfeasible to build a home at that width and depth and to get the square footage for it to make sense. So we tried to look at it as much as we could to make that work. The plan that you have before you is the latest and greatest that we were able to come up with. Pending any questions, I think we can try to answer this.
So the traffic study that was included in your submittal was October 22. Are you saying there's a newer one?
Yes, we have a new,
And that was not submitted in this?
no, it came in after that.
When was it updated?
Oh, goody. Probably a week or so after the deadline. I don't remember the deadline. Was that in June?
So it was updated.
And I'm gonna, if you raise your hand and yell at me, I'll stop talking. But I wanted to say something because I didn't say it earlier. We had a neighborhood meeting, and we had a full house. It was at the bid center. And the neighborhood meeting, Brandon, he's partners with Alex. He spoke and kind of introduced and presented the project. I barely spoke and talked about maybe some of the technical aspects, and we received comments. And I remember there was a couple of comments that kind of stuck, and we did make some changes. One of the comments was sidewalk out towards Church Street. So in this revised or the latest plan that you have, we do have a sidewalk out on Church Street. The residents, a lot of the residents seem to be from the Church Street neighborhood. They were interested in the walking ability over to our commercial. So we also have a sidewalk that runs from Church into the commercial area and along Church Street. So it was not a big concession, if you will, but it was a slight change to the plan to put that in. I can't recall any other changes or revisions that came up from that meeting, but
And speak on the parking piece, the these are townhomes with a garage, right? So you'll have a car in the garage, and you can have 2 cars in the driveway. So, and then you have additional parking on the commercial side as well. That we don't think that the commercial, based on the commercial that we have, we don't think that everyone is going to be at those stores all at once, maximizing the occupancy of those stores. Therefore, we assess that there will be significant amount of parking if yes, multiple parking. Does that make sense?
Okay, Ms. Mendez, do you have any comments on
Could you step us through your recreation plan, please? I noticed that was a pretty substantial change in kind of what you all had approved.
Sure. So right now we have the dog park. We've got the game area, barbecue kind of area on one side of the neighborhood, kind of servicing so people don't have to walk too far. And then we have on the other side the same kind of thing, but now that also has the play structure, playground and a barbecue facility. There's still that little sharing library and whatnot, with kind of stepping stones that connect the game area as well. So the game area would be cornhole type of thing. So. Yeah, well, the playground's here.
And then you still have your dog park.
Correct, yeah.
Along the side. And another barbecue and game area,
That's correct.
sharing library, et cetera.
Yes. And what we'll do, and it's not shown, but we could put it on here, because it's at the corner of that traffic, we do fully intend to put on some pylons, just in case somebody's speeding faster than the 30 miles an hour that's currently on that road. And runs into something, we'll definitely have some pylons up along the fence to make sure that we keep everyone safe.
And it doesn't appear that there will be a splash pad or anything
No, ma'am.
in this plan.
No, ma'am.
I did have questions about ingress and egress, but now that we've got an updated traffic study, I'll hold any
Okay.
questions on those until we get the updated one.
Do we know if we're gonna have a timeline?
That's gonna be part of the updated, but please ask.
Yes.
Yeah, so as of right now, no, not per this plan. I think previously it was requested to see if we could get a traffic lane up along the Highway 70 all the way down. We did look at that and doing that. Without moving all the telephone poles and just doing the extension, because there's WADC, there's essentially all utilities running up along the road. You'd have to widen it on both sides. So we're looking at almost $1 million in expenditure, which will then just significantly make this, essentially it would kill the deal. It'll be even more, man. Yeah. So we tried to see what we could do to make that happen. It's just not easy. Really, that's a state road too. So when it comes to state road requirements, you have to build to that state standard, not like county standard. Or like when we do that road in let's say not anymore. It's Maple Hills. In Maple Hills, that road is a certain depth, and like Tennessee Valley Paving will charge me a certain depth. Essentially, a state road is double that. And then you have to request this utility company to move all those utility poles, and then you have to request the water authority to allow you to move all of the sewer and water. So that just makes it very, very expensive, and not feasible.
I believe the telephone pole between the liquor store and the Dairy Queen for like 26 miles of road. That one, that particular one, I don't know about the others, but I know that one.
So on this side, on this side of the road where the commercial will be, there's we just drove by there again, just try to kind of feel it out, and I think we assessed that going at 30 miles an hour, now with the current speed limit in that area, based on the traffic study, with the turnout that we have on one side, we think that that's a reasonable way of kind of countering that. Just because that's significant cost to that commercial area, and then the commercial just won't be able to, those commercial buildings won't be able to repay the cost of that. So that's kind of, that makes sense.
Did you approach the state about
Yes, ma'am,
a
we did.
turning lane?
Yes, we did.
And were they amenable to it?
They are, yes, ma'am.
Because that was one of the big things when we voted for this, was
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we knew that was gonna be a thing that we needed there.
They're minimal, but I don't think the state's paying for any of it.
No. They're not,
Well,
Well,
I don't care
yeah,
if
we
you
knew
do it,
that,
but-
yeah, we knew that was not gonna be the case. I
And
just
for
don't
the red light, it really takes a lot.
Well, we
to
never,
work with KDOT, to
that
get
was
a red
not
light.
something that we
That's
ever
the question,
discussed.
that's the question.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really hard to get a red light on the state
Well,
highway.
no, there's the entrance to the division, there's the entrance to Dairy Queen, there's the entrance to the liquor store, all in that little area right there.
Yeah. And that's big to us, that really is. But probably in the whole scheme of things, I'm looking at it from KDOT's standpoint. They see this everywhere. So I don't know, I guess really more the traffic study might sway something with them, but it's hard to get red light this day. It took years to fight to get that one out here, just on what coming up White Bluff Road.
I know, I remember when that one happened. And I know that it's a huge cost, I know that for a turning lane, but turning the traffic that's gonna be coming off of 70, which is where most of it's gonna come off of,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of traffic, and you're gonna back up when people are waiting, trying to turn in. I don't know how you alleviate that, but, that was one of my biggest concerns with that
I
traffic.
think that's a problem all the way down from McDonald's, all the way down.
And it is, but we didn't have any, I mean, you know, we didn't do anything about that at that time, so.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
There's two entrances off of Highway 70. One will be right turn only, right turn in, right turn out. So we won't have any traffic crossing the lane to get into that entrance. The main entrance, we have 3 lanes. We have a lane in, a right turn in, and then we have 2 that are out, a left out and a right out. But at that point, we're going to be west, a little further west of some of the other exits off of Highway 70 or the other intersections with other roads. And we believe that we won't have a negative impact based on the traffic study's conclusions.
When you're saying a right turn in to the development, I'm trying to get this in my head, where it hits 2 lanes of traffic, it's gonna be a lane to itself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So here, I'm turning my way. Right, here you go, Susan. In here, or on this side, they're only be able to take a right in here.
Okay.
And folks out here can only take a right. So you can't take a left and get. I've got the whole pylon, this is concrete pylon here.
So this is a lane to itself, coming off of the highway?
So this is the highway road right here,
Right.
and you're taking a right. You can only take a right into here. and then from here, you take a right and go onto the highway. But you can't be coming down from the other side, from the Pastor City side, and take a left into this entrance. The only place you'd be able to do it is here. And this is where, to add to traffic, what we did is, instead of having just one lane to the left and right, we widened that out so that you could get a car that's turning in, and then you have two cars, everyone that's coming out, they have a right turn lane and a left turn lane.
So there's no connection from back here to get to there?
No, ma'am. And we did that kind of based on design, based on the recommendations from staff.
This is all coming in from Church Street?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So, and that was, one, to limit the traffic, and two, so people are not taking shortcuts
Yes.
through here to here, and now you're messing with people's homes.
So these are only the retail?
These are the
and
retail,
rest.
and they're kind of, they can only get on to 70.
Where are the condos on top?
No, ma'am. These are just retail.
So only other entrances, condos and stuff?
And these will be all the townhomes here.
So you had to come to Church Street?
Yes, ma'am. And there'll be two entrances for that, to the townhomes.
So all of this was, in the first plan, all this was together, which was why a turn-in lane was crucial. So now it's not. Okay, I understand that.
Initially it was, and then we changed it.
Because those were regular
These
separate
are
houses.
single-family houses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody have any more concerns?
Mr. Chairman, just as a recap, so I know we've been through the PUD process before on this project, but as y'all know, the town passed new PUD regulations, so this is the first one you're seeing under that, from that ordinance last year. I guess first, under the new traffic impact study guidelines, the traffic impact study they submitted is out of date. They have a new one, they need to submit that, and this body needs that updated traffic impact study before it takes action, in my opinion. Y'all are, of course, free to act how you want, but if it goes up to the council and there's changes, it may have to come back down here, and that actually delay the whole process. So I think y'all need to see the updated traffic impact study so y'all can make recommendations as to the road itself. That seems to be a big discussion point today, and you need that information. So we have not reviewed the traffic study. I have not, based upon the traffic impact study guidelines, because it was out of date. So I didn't spend time on that. So I'm waiting on the new one. Amanda, Jeff, and I will look at it to make sure it conforms. If you recall, the traffic impact study set very strict parameters for consistency on what has to come, when they have to do the study, at what times of day, et cetera. So I would want to see that if I were one of you. The other thing that I think needs to be discussed is, under a PUD, a lot of the zoning ordinance regulations and subdivision regulations become more of a guideline. Maybe you do something different on this side, or sidewalks are different here. It allows a back and forth between this body, and as well as it'll go up to the council at some point. So that's kind of the beauty of the PUD process. However, I think one of the bedrocks of zoning is density. And currently, we're going to talk about density in a minute later on the agenda, but separate from that, under R1, R2, or R3, there's different lot sizes that the town has right now, right? And under R3, it's 8,000 square feet for the first lot, 5,000 thereafter, and that's per unit. So if you have a 6-unit townhome block, right, you're going to be looking at somewhere between 30 and 33,000 square feet for that. The maximum number of lots or units under your current zoning ordinance is about 8.6 under R3. If you had a 10-acre, 100-acre lot, that's about the maximum if you do the math. They're saying the maximum is 12, so I'm curious where that number came from, and the proposed density is 11.5. Now, I think, depending on how this body and the council acts, some deviation could be warranted, but that is a pretty significant upward deviation from, let's round down to 8.5, going up to 11.5. That's 3 more units of density. That's pretty significant. So I wanted to point that out, that if this was not a PUD, if this was just coming in R3 with townhomes, not even close to this density would be permitted. And again, I don't think it's recommended. Y'all are free to make whatever recommendation you want, but I don't think it's recommended to drastically exceed the density in the zoning ordinance. Otherwise, you need a new zoning designation for something this different. So that's just a couple of things I saw. There's a few other minor things, but I think the traffic study and the density were the 2 biggest things that I think this body needs to consider. The final thing I'll point out is, if you recall from the last PUD process, remember this is kind of a back and forth. If you see something that you would like to comment on or make a motion to change, you have that ability. With this prior submission that was approved, the fence height and the fence type and the way the homes were oriented were all part of that process that got changed by the council. So don't be shy in that. If you see something like that you want to address in this pattern book, talk about it, make a motion to say, hey, let's do it this way, let's see what this body thinks. You are free to do so. This is not a plat, this is not a site plan that you're checking the boxes for minimum standards. This is a planned urban development. There's a back and forth between this body. The ultimate recommendation goes up to the council for 2 readings, because it's a zoning ordinance effectively. So those are my 3 cents, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else have any
On this,
comments?
on this plan, where is the fencing gonna be? On this one now?
I can't see with my eyes, but let's see. It's in the sheets. It's in our landscaping. Yeah. Can you show the fence there? Yeah. I'm trying to point it out really quick. Landscaping. So, as of right now, to the perimeter of the property, and then there's also some separation between the commercial and the residential. So that's how we have it divided. That makes sense. Can't see it on this here. But do you have the design that we submitted?
I've got the
It's
same thing you're
these.
holding.
It's these. Okay, she has the same thing we have.
So that may be something you might want to look at separating out a little bit better.
Here, it's labeled right here, fence.
Yeah.
So we run down near the front on Highway 70.
Yeah.
Highway 70. Okay, and we come in, comes around the dog park to here.
It's got to come around here, for sure.
Behind the houses too. It's essentially the entire property, the entire triangle, that's what we've got. And then here's where we've got some separation in bushes. So this, these bushes, essentially it's landscaping, tell you exactly what kind of landscaping it is. It kind of serves as that barrier between the townhome and this area. This right here shows that it's a fence.
No, it's on here. I mean, yeah, but we got it.
It goes all the way across. And then, but we can clean this up to actually give you a better, take off some of these filters back here so you can sell. So what I was saying is the pylons we want to put here, and by the, is, for like safety purposes, right now it has clamps, but we need to put some kind of concrete barriers or some kind of something, a lock or something here to stop traffic.
Off the top of my head, I cannot remember the differences we voted on for the because it's been a while, for the fences and what we needed them to look like. Do you remember that?
It's on that previous, we can get it.
Yeah, because I do, like I said.
It was a rail fence. Yeah. It was kind of what you might look at and see horses in a crowd,
Right.
kind of a wooden rail fence.
Is it still gonna be that height?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think through the things that are gonna get brought up.
So if I may, if that is something that you want as part of the submittal, then I would make the suggestion that you give direction to the applicant to include that.
Well, I really think that it needs to remain the way that, because it was a huge thing when it came to the council. The fencing was a huge discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
And so was the type of bushes and the height of the bushes. Those need to stay the way they were in the original plan, I think, in my
Well, it's actually better,
Yeah.
sort of, because your landscaping requirements have changed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say better, it's more in concert with the latest
I'm
landscape
thinking about the
requirements.
height. Like I said, it's been a while, and so I'm trying to
Well,
remember.
I remember that conversation too, so, and the height especially was really important to us, for the single-family homes and separating the
Right.
church from church, you know, so
Right.
that would have some privacy.
Right.
I do remember that.
So what I just want to make the point to the applicant's group is that I strongly encourage you all to be taking notes on what the members are telling you, and do not rely on staff to be bringing that to you, because there have been so many iterations of this plan before. Trent is correct that with the landscaping ordinance that council passed, that a lot of those, I think the landscaping plan does meet that requirement, that concern that you're expressing with the height of it. But that's something that you all
We
can
can
go back
double
and
check.
double check. Yeah,
Yeah.
double check with that.
Yeah, those were just two big
Yeah.
things.
For sure.
There's a lot more this time,
There
but
is.
whether it addresses that height thing, I'll double check.
For instance, here, remember, it says like Carolina and American Holly, 8 to 10 inches. Like every single one of them, so exactly.
But we'll look,
It's just,
because
it's hard to read,
Right.
because it's so small, and I will tell you that I actually went through and checked. I've got a couple of questions on, some of the native species that I reached out to my contact, just to double check that they're still okay, because there's some hybrids that are out there, it's okay, I haven't found anything like, like that's banned or anything. I think it would be beneficial for the general public also to have like a larger set where it's easier to read and you can see those details on the plants and, the rail heights, the fence and things like that too. Just not one huge set for everybody, but just like one that lives at town hall that people could come and take a look at.
Maybe do that. I think,
I think one of the,
If that's what you want, you tell the applicant.
If you have, like you said, you couldn't hardly read it because of all the stuff that you can take it and make it simple. One picture of just the way the density of the plants and everything's gonna lay out, and then one density of where the fence lines are gonna be.
Yes, ma'am.
Just kind of a breakdown of, and then all together on one,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
like we got it right now.
Yeah, so she's wanting the fence, I just want to make sure that I understood what you were asking for. So you're asking for a representation exactly where the fence is going to be and exactly the density of the plant. And in addition to that, we're also going to probably try to figure out if we can show the actual plants, maybe representation of all these plants, visual representation of
Just
them.
kind of break it down, take it down from what it is right now, and just take, like how you overlay things.
Like kind of show them something like
Yeah.
that, like what, kind of like like what you've shown on your cover.
Yes, ma'am.
Because in the description, again, you kind of have to like really zoom in on it, but they do an excellent job. I mean, you guys really did, a really, really good job on your landscaping plan and calling out, like, the types of maples that are gonna be in there, the types of hardwoods, the types of flowering shrubs. I mean, I was really impressed, like, kudos to you for doing that.
I have nothing to do with it.
Well,
You
whoever
gotta give her
did.
credit where it's.
Credit where credit is due, whoever it goes to, like, excellent job.
Maybe call it layering, and that way anybody that walks in here comes into town and looks and see the, right, this is how the, this is how the flowers and the bush is gonna be.
Just like a general rendering,
Yeah.
to kind of get that idea of, like, what the site would look like.
Yeah, we had a lot of visuals for the,
At council.
we had a lot of, for the community meeting, we had a lot of visuals. So we actually have visuals of what the actual structures that are planned with the actual fence and what's gonna look like from the street.
Oh,
So
maybe
you
you
can-
can bring those back.
And we can bring those, we shared that with, Brandon shared that with everyone, and I thought it was a good representation, so we'll do that as well. So I'll have that on the planning commission meeting. But I want to speak to, really quick, on the traffic study. The density, the residential density is actually decreased. It decreased significantly. So when we were talking from what was approved to what this is actually now, we have decreased it by, I think, 20, over 20 units. So, and based on the feedback that we've received from some folks, on the planning commission and the city council previously, the commercial was a priority. They wanted, folks wanted commercial. Well, if you get commercial, then we have to kill it, the commercial is expensive. Not only is it expensive, it's a lot of paving, so it takes a lot of parking. It takes a lot of space just for that little box. And to do that, it takes away from the entire performer or the feasibility of the entire project. So we believe that right now, with the density that we currently have, it's very well balanced. Based on previous and based on other subdivisions within the vicinity of White Bluff, and that has been approved, we believe that this is actually not as dense as others. And to speak on the landscaping, I think, yes, we not only did a good job in representing what we're going to put, but I think this is going to be the most landscaped neighborhood in the entirety of the town of White Bluff. And all those are, I think I commend, really Amanda came on and she brought all her knowledge and her expertise to the town, and it's made it better. So and the entire staff, and there's been a learning process for me, for our company, I think for the town as well. But I would say, a lot of it is really good. I think there's definitely a balance between the realities of what's going on in America and affordability, and what we have as a government body on applying all these other restrictions that impact the consumer. And that consumer is American sons and daughters that are trying to afford a house, which getting out of high school is impossible. And even sometimes not getting out of college is impossible. And having a job for 5 years is impossible. So on Carriage Way, some of the houses that are selling are $390,000. $390,000 at a 7% interest rate is significant for families. So every time we add a thing, me as a developer, I have to be able to get that out, because the bank won't give me the money to develop it, because it will be like, oh, well, you can only build the home, you can only sell, the market will only give you a $340,000 house. So where is that money going to come from? So either we kill a project, or we make it more expensive. So, I was just in the back, pulling up the budget, and just asked, just for one subdivision, just for the grading permit, not the $347,000 that you paid to the Water Authority of Dixon County, where they actually put not one piece of pipe into the ground, but just the grading permit that I paid Mr. Roy was $25,000 the other day, just to remove dirt. And then in addition to We're planning to build about 1,500 to 1,800 square foot homes, times how many homes are Cornell Road, or times how many homes are here. That's a significant amount of money that's going to come to this town. And if you look at the last year's budget, you look at the revenue, and the revenue that came in from new construction, and if you take the projected revenue that's going to come from the developments that our company has brought into the town of White Bluff, what you'll find is that there'll be about, on average, about $1,600 per home that's going to be made for every new house that's built in the town of White Bluff. About, on average, $300,000 homes, $1,600. About 1,000 of that is going to go to the state and the county. About 600 of that is going to come to the town. So that's a significant amount of money that's going to come. So we're talking about raising taxes to pay for things, but I think when we're talking about responsible density, I think this is exactly the exact representation of responsible density. It's on a corridor of a state road. We're not killing frontage by being irresponsible with the land that we do have. I think Mr. Chappell has a great piece of property, has frontages on a couple of roads. I think we're maximizing everything that we can and being as responsible with the land and making sure that the project is feasible. So I think we've done that, and that's why, and this has gone for a long time. We have been lucky to be the guinea pig, I would say, of the town. With Mr. Chappell he has a patience of an angel, right? So this does have some financial implications, right, too, for us and the feasibility of this project moving forward. So I would ask, as we work with the town, you guys too try to understand where we're coming from as business owners. I'm not a trust fund kid, I promise. Every single dollar that I've made, I've earned, and we both have. So anyway, I digress.
I don't want to change the subject unless if it's okay. Tell me when I can change the subject?
About what?
Well,
Watching what?
Not the Dairy Queen. But some of the things that we talked about, I'm going to pick one, but I'd like to make some notes so that we can look to see what we can change. The maximum density we called out was 12 units per acre. Do you all have a maximum density that you prefer? And I mean, part of that is your R3 zoning is an 8,000 for the first unit, 5,000 thereafter. But do you guys have a preference? At 5,000, 8 units in 1 acre is 40,000. So that's roughly 8 units per acre. Do you all have something that if we came back with, that you wouldn't think twice about approving? Because apparently, I'm worried that the 12 units per acre, you might think twice about approving. So do you have a number in mind that you might want to shoot at us?
Under our current, what we've revamped everything to, under our current, what is acceptable in our new zoning?
So, and this, again, kind of gets to what we're going to talk about in a minute. The way the current zoning ordinance reads, you're focused on lot size, right? So it's 8,000 square feet for the first unit, and then 5,000 square feet for every unit thereafter. So let's ignore the commercial and the roads and stuff on this side. It's 7.62 acres, right? If you were just under R3 and going to develop the whole site to its absolute maximum, which I still think would be difficult, but let's assume it for a moment, it would be 65 units. That's how that, if you go 43,560 square feet an acre times 7.62, and then do that math, you're looking at about 65 units. That's one way of looking at it, but that's looking at the whole site. What they're looking at, they're not looking at the open space or the roads or the commercial. They're showing what's left for the townhomes, and that's how they're getting that math. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. If you're looking at the residential units for the entire site, it's under our R3 cap. Again, a PUD allows you discretion, right? It's approved by this body and the council, and that's where the source of that discretion comes from. If you're just looking at the acreage they're developing with the townhomes, it is 11 and a half. So it all depends on which lens you're looking through. If you're looking at the whole site, it's actually under our cap. If you look at just the acreage that they're addressing, it's over. But it's a PUD, so y'all have a certain amount of discretion. I just wanted to point out that, as they were saying, and I said earlier, it's about 8.6. If you just assume the entire site's developed. Going up to 12 is a pretty big deviation, and I really just wanted to point it out because that is a big deviation. They're not wrong in that it was technically denser on the prior submittal, but I'm still going to point it out for this body. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's, you know, if you're looking at 5,000 square feet after the 8 per unit, it's really, for what they're developing residentially, it's actually under that. It's closer to 4,000 square feet per unit, but you're attaching townhomes together, so it's 0 lot line units for however many, 5, 6, 7.
What we're saying is that it is a mixed-use development, so we're calculating as a total. So, and I think we're significantly decreasing the density in totality from where it was previously to what it is now. In addition to this specific site, the way that it lays, now has other implications outside of this body that this body can't control. That is now a pump station, an actual utility upgrade to the county utility that will service not only this subdivision, but this is now becomes the property of the Dixon Water Authority, and that's the pump station that's going to cost about $4 million. So, I think it is imperative that we keep the density as is. Again, to go back to the statement that I made earlier, all of these things, either way, you know, it's just, you're going to go make lemonade and sugar is $1,000, you know, a pound, you probably can't sell lemonade. So you probably go into another business or find somewhere where you can get lemonade cheaper. I mean, that's just a reality. But I think with the way that it is, and if you compare this to the other developments that have been approved in the town of White Bluff, you will find that this isn't as dense as others. So if we look at Timbercrest, we look at the landscaping, we look at everything there, and then we look at this, it's a little different. So, but I think we definitely need the density to make this a feasible project.
Well, I think that, what our council is saying, and I agree, is that we really can't make a decision without the traffic study, the new traffic study in hand.
If I may, and we're just another stone trip. Yes, one sec. The traffic study, the homes are less than what they were. So that's kind of my argument is like the traffic study was good.
I get that,
Yeah.
but it's a new traffic study, and we've got some new things in place now,
Yes,
so that we need to see the traffic study in order to make an educated decision.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll just add, while the density's gone down,
Yes.
the traffic conditions may have changed over what is almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's probably a bigger component than what's going on the site. So certainly that will be relevant. But it's not necessarily required to be a wholesale new traffic study, it just needs to be updated.
And it already is, and we'll send that to you.
Perfect.
I think I guess for the next, when's the next planning commission, is that Thursday?
The next planning commission would be
It's
August,
August.
is that 13th? Yeah.
Can I say something on traffic study? I think it's emailed into your email. No. I mean, she emailed it to you just now.
Oh.
If not to you, I'll also make sure we email it to you. Hopefully she sent it to you too at the same time. but the results of the traffic study continue to show we don't have a loss of service, and there's no recommended improvements, which is what the first one said. Which the verbiage is probably almost the same, because I can assure you, we don't want to retype, a bunch of papers, so it was just little bits and pieces were updated, the math portions, if you will, but the results are basically the same. And part of that goes into play with, we have a reduction in the size of the development. We do have a couple years of an increase in the traffic that we do take into account, but we still show no loss. When we get to the end of the meeting, if we could make a vote and have it contingent upon what I'm saying being true, those two will have it and can disseminate that to all you, however they do that.
Okay, and I get all that, I do, but I am not willing to go against what we're being advised to do. So anybody else, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but I am not willing to take a vote when I don't have what I need.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. Okay.
Do we have to if you have got the updated, if they emailed it to you and y'all got anything that would satisfy you, is that something that could be printed out right now and copies made? Instead of waiting a month for it, would it be the same difference?
I don't have it, I just checked, and no, I would not want to sit here and do a review of the traffic study.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you said one cover to cover.
It'll be thick. I mean,
Okay.
It'll put you to sleep.
Oh, okay.
And it'll have to be reviewed under the guidelines that the council passed.
Okay.
So that's one aspect. And I think there's been requests for additional information, the layers, as I'm going to call them.
The landscaping.
The landscaping. So I think all of that would need to be brought back. Now, for efficiency purposes, if there's anything else so that you might be able to vote in the next meeting, I would say let them know now. It would be, not to say you have to, but I think if you want as much information as you think you need to vote in August, I would ask for it now.
May I? Is it possible, and I don't know at what times it is possible to request based on the constraints of time that we have, because this has been sometimes at fault of us, and sometimes no fault of anyone, just this month, right? We have short months, we have holidays, we have all these things. Can't get things done in time. So now we're going to push a whole nother month, and I'm under contract to purchase some property that now I've, actually released a whole bunch of earnest money. And, even though he likes the way I look, he's not doing it with my looks, right? So he's trying to sell his property as fast as possible, and I want to make sure that he does. So, what creative way what can we do rather than pushing this a whole another month because we do have the fencing, we do have those items that we can provide to the body. Is it possible to call for a special session meeting to meet these requirements so that we don't have to lose time, because every month that we do lose is significant and provides and hinders the feasibility of this project and causes financial distress onto the project itself.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the chairman can call a special call meeting or two members of the planning commission. Respectfully, I'll go back to traffic study briefly. A current traffic study is required with the submission. That didn't happen. So I mean that's an automatic reason for deferral. I don't think staff's going to change. I'm not going to change my position on that. It's also in the guidelines that it typically would take 3 months to go through the planning commission process. And I think what we're angling for is possibly 2. and then you've got 2 readings at the council level, barring an emergency, which, again, with all due respect, your financial situation, it will never be an emergency circumstance for the town. It's going to have to be regular meetings. So, you know, at this sort of scheduling, the PC meeting would be in August. Assuming there's a recommendation by the planning commission, it would go to the council in September, and then if that passes the first vote, it would go for second reading at the October meeting. That's just, I mean, the PUD process usually takes 6 months or longer. That's looking at it actually being a little bit shorter.
Sure.
And there's an approved PUD right now. I mean, that's the other thing I think this body needs to keep in mind. It's not like there's nothing approved. There's an approved PUD right now, and this is coming in as a new PUD. And rushing things almost always is never a good thing. It makes me nervous. Trust me, I get the need and the want to move as quickly as humanly possible. But as is a complaint of many, government is slow. And I think there's a reason for that. That they have to be, you know, these people who sit up here are part-time. They dedicate their time to trying to set aside time to review things, and looking at things in the meeting is not advisable. You've had some requests for information. I think it will be vetted and reviewed by staff and the planning commission prior to the next meeting, and then they can make a recommendation from there. So, no, it's not what you're looking for. That's what I would advise this body to act upon.
Yes, I appreciate everybody's time and your efforts. Just we didn't have enough time to get, I don't know if we did get the comments back in time. I know I didn't. From the submission, I don't know if we submitted any time to get the.
You had everything timely, which is why you're here.
Yeah.
There was no work session this month because of the way the calendar fell.
And
So there was no opportunity, and this is a brand new submittal.
sure.
And that's why with this procedure, that's why there's so much more effort required
Sure.
on the part of the applicant
Right.
with the neighborhood meeting and things like that. If there had been major red flags, and we had several staff meetings with your engineer,
Sure.
in which I reported multiple times, I did not see any major red flags,
Sure.
except for, the traffic study that was, out of date. I didn't know until this meeting that there was a new traffic study.
Sure.
So,
I understand. Okay. I guess because there wasn't a work session meeting that typically happens,
right.
that also did throw kind of a wrench in this whole thing. So now we just got pushed for a whole another month because of that. But I thought it was planned, but I guess it was canceled for.
It typically would have happened the Thursday before, and it was July 4th, so I don't think we were going to have
Sure.
that.
Okay. I digress.
Because, I'm gonna make this motion that we table it until August so that we have everything. It's up to anybody else to do with it.
Can I interrupt something? Before we take a vote, can I go through the things that we think we're going to be providing additional information? And you can let me know if I'm left something off. We're going to provide more landscape information, some elevation views, some artist renderings, if you will. And in those same renderings, we'll show the fence. And I'm kind of thinking in my mind, at several locations, we'll show this. So you kind of, maybe a couple on Highway 70 and a couple on Church. Well, I've already talked about the fence. So the fence and the
Ballards at the dark part.
the fence and some additional landscaping information. And we're going to show some bollards. You guys know what a bollard is. You see them at every gas station you go to. It's just a 6-inch, maybe 8-inch diameter pipe. So that we might put some up there at the corner of Church and Highway 70 in case someone gets frisky with their car. Maybe they'll hit a bollard and not a person. So we'll throw a couple, we'll show a couple. Is there anything else that...
And the traffic study.
The traffic study, you guys, I'm not even mentioning that because we will have that. He already has it. It was emailed to him minutes ago, to both of you. Or after you didn't get it, I texted Delia, and she said she did email to you. So now you can read it tonight and go to sleep. But is there anything else that comes to mind that we don't want, I want to make sure I bring everything. Or
Maybe the sidewalk,
every, pardon me?
maybe how the sidewalks are gonna lay.
Oh, you have that.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
You do have that.
But that's in it, y'all.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, it's the color, I've never seen an orange sidewalk, but we chose orange.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this, and, oh,
You take one
actually,
out,
here, let me help you. Let me help you by grabbing mine. You just had this, and I don't know where in yours, but this was the one that came up in the neighborhood meeting. And we may already have had this, but we made this final connection. So anybody walking can walk all the way to the commercial section. Yeah. Now, someone could walk in here, come across, and come up here and get into commercial. So in both directions, you can get commercial.
Any questions?
All we have. All right, I have a motion that we table it until more information is provided.
I second.
I hear a second.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion will be tabled. Okay. Okay, consider revise of the zoning ordinance, Article 5, zoning district regarding residential units per acre. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is one of those long percolating items that we're bringing to you. We get to keep talking about density, kind of segue from what we were just talking about. And this goes in parallel and relatively in harmony with the open space requirements that this body already voted on. And the idea is to present, if y'all allow and recommend, these amendments with the open space requirements to the county council. And so, let me start by saying, like we were talking about with the PUD process, the way your current zoning ordinance reads, you're focused on the lot size. I'm not saying that's not important, but that's the way that y'all look at it, and unless you go through a PUD and can deviate a little bit, you're looking at 22,000 square feet per lot in R1, 17,000 in R2, and then the 8,000 for the first lot and 5,000 for every lot thereafter in R3. The other way to look at it that we are recommending today, and that's the amendment I passed out to you, I think addresses a number of concerns. The calculation lens, again, back to what we were just talking about, if you look at the whole site, from 70th Church, it's under the R3 cap on the lot size technically. If you look at just what's being developed residentially, that lot in their plat, it's over. I don't think that that's the best way of looking at it, and Amanda and Jeff and I have met on this a number of times, and looking at planning principles. The newer way of looking at zoning density is the amendment you see before you, and the numbers are up for debate, of course, but is to look at dwelling units per acre. So with the zoning ordinance amendment, I just put together very briefly an Excel spreadsheet. And I'd like to go through it with you so you understand what the proposed difference means. So in those first three lines there, it has three examples under R1 zoning: 10 acres, 25 acres, and 50 acres. Under your current zoning ordinance, you can see the correlation there, the units. a 10-acre R1 site can maybe maximum get 19 units, 19 lots. A 25-acre site, let's do the math, it's 49. A 50-acre site, 99. Under the proposed amendment of 1 dwelling unit per acre, it's what the acreage is in R1. So you're going to have your open space, you're going to have your infrastructure and all that. That's irrelevant. You're looking at what is the maximum amount of units you can have on a site. So for 10 acres, it'd be 10. For 25 acres, it'd be 25. For 50 acres, it would be 50. So what that equates to in a difference is you're lowering the density in R1. I think that's been some concern expressed, particularly by a couple of council members, of looking at the density of R1. Traditionally, those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts. We only have 1, 2, and 3. Is this density per acre? So that's what happens with R1. R2, and we've had this discussion many times over the years, R2 is not that different from R1 in terms of that lot size that you currently have. The only real big difference is it allows duplexes. And we're not proposing a change to that aspect, just this one would be 3 units per acre. So it actually allows a little bit more density in R2, differentiates it from R1, and truly creates a middle ground with the 3 unit per acre analysis. And then jumping down to R3, this is where probably the biggest difference is. The density really starts to drop off. So for a 10-acre site, the maximum density you could have is 86. I don't think that would actually happen. Roads and other things would take up space, but it's 86. It would drop to 50 because it's 5 units per acre. So 10 acres times 5 is 50 units, right? So you could have 10 5-unit townhomes or any number of options. You're kind of letting the developer put together the puzzle. You're just putting in the parameters of however much land you're bringing in, that's what we're going to cap your unit as. And there's going to be other limitations in there as well, like the open space. This also goes along with the woodland protections that we've been talking about and have passed, the landscaping ordinance. All of that's going to interplay with this because the whole goal is to allow a little bit more clustering on the site to increase the amount of usable open space. I may be alone on this, but I never really get excited. If I saw a 100-acre lot and it got developed into 100 one-acre houses, that kind of gives me a nightmare. That's just, it's a sea of houses. And the modern trend is to say, okay, you're limiting it to 100 under R1, say, but they get to have smaller lot sizes. You get to have more open space, and you're creating more community spaces. This is a burden on development, no doubt, but on the developer. But it's less area that needs infrastructure. The roads, there are going to be less of them. There are going to be less pipes in the ground because of the open spaces that you create. So I had Jeff send me some of the information on recent developments that have been talked about. So 2 are Timbercrest and the cottages at Carriage Way. So for example, under the proposed amendment, right now Timbercrest has 43 units on 6 acres. Under the proposed amendment, that would drop down to 30, because 6 times 5 is 30, right? It would also have 30% open space, assuming that gets passed by the council. So you have a greater amount of open space, less units, and I think that's probably more in line of what's been talked about before by the council and this body. The cottages at Carriage Way, that's 4.87 acres, 39 units right now. Under these amendments, it would actually drop to 24, again, with 30% open space and 25% of that needing to be formal, usable open space that we've talked about before that y'all have already recommended. White Bluff Hills, when we looked at that, it's 119 on 111 acres. You wouldn't see a big difference in density because it just dropped 8 down to 111, but 30% of it would be open space. That's 32, 33 acres. 25% of which would have to be formal, like a gathering area, a park, whatever, so under those open space requirements. So that is really what's being proposed. In order to accommodate that, some of the setbacks have been trimmed. That's the other part of this amendment. So when you look at the R1, the new F section that we're proposing, you've got density and bulk lot standards. The density for R1 is 1 dwelling unit per acre. The bulk lot standards drop down to where the front setback's 25, the side's 10, and the rear is 25. Currently, under R1, let me turn to that page. R1 says that the setbacks vary from 30 to 50. That's another thing that this amendment's doing is we didn't like, because sometimes it gets a little vague, there are different setbacks based upon whether it's an arterial, a collector, or a minor street. That gets rid of those distinctions. You have hard setbacks in the R1 district, you have hard setbacks in the R2 district, and hard setbacks in the R3 district. So you got 25, 10, 25, and then you set a minimum lot width of 80. It's a little bit smaller than what R1 is right now. How the developer then positions that lot is up to them. How big they want that building envelope is up to them. But again, you're not looking at the lot size per se, you're backing into it. You're looking at how many dwelling units do we want to permit per acre. That's the new analysis. I think it makes it easier when this body and the council sees a rezoning request or an annexation. You can easily see, all right, this is a 15-acre annexation. I know what it's going to mean if it's R1, which is what you have to come in as be zoned if you're annexed. But if they ask for R2 or R3, I know what that means. I'm going to multiply by 3 or 5. You're able to see what is the maximum that could happen on that site. Again, balancing it with the open space requirements. Real quick on R2, setbacks are trimmed a little bit down from R1, but not terribly. It's 20 front, 10 side, 20 rear. The lot width is 65 feet, which is just a little bit below what it is right now. And then finally, for the R3, it goes 15 front, 5 side, 20 rear, which is the front's a little bit trimmed. The minimum lot width of 50 actually is consistent with what you have for R3 right now. So we understand we were talking about this to bring to you. This is a pretty big shift in how you look at density, but it's cleaner, and those numbers are absolutely up for debate. If this body wants to change the setbacks or the units per acre, I think that is a very worthwhile discussion. That's just the recommendation to be somewhat in line with what we currently have. And again, the amendment lowers the density of R1, slightly increases the density of R2, and lowers the density of R3. Again, I think we can talk about that. But I know we've met a few times on this. Amanda, Jeff, any thoughts, comments on this?
Okay. Any comments?
It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
It is a lot of information. It's like, well, why do you not bring certain things before now? But these are building blocks. And I mean, it takes we have to know what planning commission, council's stomach is for open space and that kind of thing, and then you can start backing into these other things. We think this is a good way to do it. I mean, it does lower density somewhat. Developers are not going to like that, but what you give them is the ability to cluster and reduce infrastructure cost, and that's what Alex has just spent 30 minutes talking about, was his cost. So we think that's the trade-off.
If you go somewhere like Clarksville or Knoxville or just anywhere traveling like that and look at these houses, complexes, no trees, just one house. Looks like a whole sea of houses. That's what we're trying to eliminate.
And this wasn't created from scratch. We looked at other jurisdictions. A lot of them in Williamson County, for example, Brentwood, Franklin, Thompson Station, have robust open space requirements, and they balance that with looking at units per acre. Again, they're not as concerned with lot size. You've got a lot of people who don't want a lawn. You know,
Yeah.
they don't want to maintain that, but they want to not just look at houses.
Look at
They want,
concrete, yeah.
I'll have an example that I'll probably bring at some point, one that I've gotten to work on. It's a 150-acre development, R1, it's 150 homes, and there's 70 acres of open space. They basically created a figure 8 with two kind of central parks, and you know, a lot of it's just forest trees. You're kind of preserving that with that canopy, but they have formal open space pockets where people get to gather. So every single house is looking out onto not a house, front and rear, right? That's been interesting to see, and in the discussions we've had on the staff side to bring to you, given the concerns that have been expressed. You know, again, I'll go back to Timbercrest. There was concern about how dense that was. 8.6 units per acre. This drops it down to 5. You know, it does address some of the things we've seen, and I don't think open space should be passed without this. I don't think this should be passed without open space. I think they go together in balancing. But it's up to this body to make a positive or negative recommendation, and it's ultimately a zoning amendment, so it's up to the council to adopt or not.
I like the concept. I love open spaces. I wish we had more things like splash pads, stuff like that. I really do, I like that. I'm a tree hugger, I think everybody knows that. My only question is though, is this going to price some of our people, is it going to price them out of the market? How's this going to affect prices of people, like I know Timbercrest, I mean, you know, I know some of the people over there, those houses are contracted pretty much for they can get out of the ground. So I know that, so that some people are at least having a place to live. Would it be like, what I have a half acre, which is a yard, I have a lot of trees, and I love the way I live. But my kids and my grandchildren, I will tell you right now, I don't even know when they'll be able to afford a home. So that's my question. As much as I like this idea, the whole concept, and we're all about affordable housing, we are. Well, let me back up. Do we have anything even similar to what you were talking about? I don't know where that is. Was that in Leepersport, Franklin, what you're working on now?
It was out of Williamson County.
Williamson County, okay. Do we have anything even similar to that here in White Bluff? Would Dillard Hills be maybe the closest thing? Because when I ride through there, I think it's beautiful. The lots seem to be large. Of course, that is an older, you know, that's something that started Charles Woodard started 15, 20 years ago. Cherokee Drive, very pretty. I don't know the lot size out there. I don't know. I can't let you talk. I'm sorry. I know you want to, but I can't. That would be the most maybe similar thing I could think of that we have in White Bluff in the city limits that is comparative to what you're talking about.
So, I don't know the exact layout of Dillard Hills. I don't think there's any open space. And again,
Dillard Hills is much larger lots.
Right.
Yes,
Probably
much
an acre plus.
They have their own open space, to be honest.
Right. And I say
Either way,
this-
just they have large lots.
Look, there's not an economic analysis that's been done.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly something to consider. This looks at density overall and how much open space you want to see.
Right.
Again, I think the balance, I don't know if it's enough to balance or if it's too much. I think that's a policy decision by the council ultimately. But having to develop less of the site should save money, right? However, you're preserving some of it under our woodland protection, under open space, if that goes through. Again, it's a balancing act of policy and, of course, market forces, because there's only so much a jurisdiction can do to dictate what gets built, right? ultimately, a developer or a builder is going to have to choose to build something under your regulations. And candidly, part of this discussion on this and open space was to encourage people to go through the PUD process, because that's a 25% open space. If you don't go through the PUD, it would be, again, if the council passes it, it would be 30%.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing a PUD and you're just meeting those minimum requirements under the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, you've got a little bit more you've got to do. The PUD allows the flexibility like y'all were going through a little bit earlier today. That's another implication. But no, Mayor, I don't know what the economic impact would be. This is from the zoning perspective of what density are we comfortable with as a town,
Right.
and what open space are we comfortable with as a town. Those are the two big things with this.
And I'm looking at both sides of it, and I like this concept, and I like everything we've talked about. I do like all that. And I think that a town needs a little bit of each price range. I mean, there is nothing wrong with someone wanting to live in a townhouse or in an apartment. There's nothing wrong with that, if that's how they choose to live, and some people do. But there's also needs to be a place that if you want a house that I couldn't afford, just to be quite honest with you, but still there are people that can, and God bless them, you know. If they can live like that, we need to provide some of that. I mean, I hope that we have it, and I keep going back to Dillard Hills. To me, Dillard Hills is probably that, and White Bluff Hills next, and then, you know, you've got some in every price range. I just want to make sure that we don't price ourselves to where we can't live here, but yet have some of the amenities, because I do love the open space, I do, don't get me wrong, and I like everything that we're doing, but that is my only problem with it, my only question, and so maybe I'm wrong, you know, but that's a question I had to bring up. I'm just saying, I have family that would like to live here, is what I'm saying, and unless they pretty much live in the house they're living in, or they inherit my house, they might not be able to live here, I don't know. So discussion, am I wrong? Am I not looking at it right, or what?
You know, I'm from West Nashville, and Bell meets the top, West meets next, Billwood's next, Charlotte Park's next, and where I'm from, the Nations, is half of that. But now, the Nations you can't live in because they went down to the 1800s plots. You can't buy a house for under $700,000. I think I paid $7,500 for mine when I bought it in 1970.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that I couldn't buy a house here.
No.
I think I paid $117 for mine, and it's worth about $4.
And you live, Cortland?
Cortland Lane.
Yeah.
Right off White,
Yeah.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
And that's a cute little subdivision for
Oh,
Charlotte.
it is, it is. It's a nice subdivision.
And yet they started out like $99,000 to $119,000, I think, and now none of them under $300 or more.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just thinking from also, we have some builders on our council, and we have some real estate people, I'm sure, that's here, but and real estate is selling, I assume, you know, but, I've always heard, you know, the complaints of I can't work here, I can't buy a house here. Well, I've been hearing that more. And I don't know what we can do about it, to be honest with you, I really don't. I see more families living together now. I don't know what we can do about it, but I just want to make sure that, that we are kind of about affordable housing. I just don't want it to become such a burden, you know, on the builders, because when you build something, we all know that, it's a business. When you build something, plus then the banks, they've got to make money, interest. Then they've all got to make money because that's how they make their living and putting it back in the economy. I don't know how to answer that. But that is a concern I have. I just don't want us to price people to where they can't live here. Or anywhere, I guess, I don't know.
A lot of the friends I went to school with, or my daughter went to school with, have moved here from West Nashville. Because it is more affordable than Nashville.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's up there, a lot of the,
And that's what I'm saying, it is more affordable now. But when we start decreasing density, if we do, then it's not, the houses are gonna go up. I mean, if you've got 3 houses where you did have 5, those 3 houses are gonna go more than the 5. For the builder and for the person, and the people now that are selling land, oh my gosh, we all know what land goes for now. We would have invested 20 years ago in land, but those are the concerns that I have.
let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
So so you're saying that if we allow less housing, on a piece of property, regardless of how big it is or whatever, it's gonna cost more. But is it gonna be any more than these properties that we've already approved with all the houses on them that are selling for $300, $350? You know, is it gonna cost, I mean, in my mind, I don't think it is, but, you know, that's just they're not gonna, they're not gonna be developing as much of it.
You're a builder, so if you've got an acre and you've given somebody $150,000 for that acre, but then you learn you can only put 3 houses on there, and you're planning on 5 houses. Now those 3 houses, you've got to, and what I'm saying is, do you have to increase the price to make your land and your bill? I don't know.
Normally, you would try to figure 3 times your lot cost to build that's what your house would be, to sell on the market. If you sold a house, in the days, if you bought $50,000, you'd sell your house for $150,000. That would be competitive, but now that has run plumb out of sight, and it doesn't even relate to it anymore, because your cost of material, your subs cost. Time you get through the spreadsheet and you build a new house, you're going to be amazed how much money you'll have in it. And,
so if you can put 5 houses on there instead of 3, can you defer the cost per house is what I'm asking?
well, no, you're going to build a
For your
house.
profit that you're gonna get out of it.
You're not going to build a $225,000 house, no.
But you're building more of them. You're building 5 instead of 3.
Yeah. But this affordable housing, I don't know how that this will ever be managed. We've got a subdivision in town now where they just like 13 lots building out and haven't sold the first house.
Yeah.
Because they've had the cost of building them and what they got them on the market for. They are, in 2 weeks' time, they're going to sell to investors and instead of the public. So that's in this town. You know, so that if that helps you any, lets you know what, if the houses there, they can be bought, but there's nobody buying them. And I don't think they're too unreasonably priced. I think they're pretty well market. They're in the 3s. So my point being is, you know, you have to adapt what the cost has. There's no $90,000. There's no 110. There's no 150, 160. Nothing like that anymore. Your new norm now is in the 3s. 325, 360, 385.
And I understand that. That.
But that's the cost, and that's like a 1,400-foot house or a 1,500-foot house. There's no way.
I guess I'm looking at volume more than I'm looking at anything.
I don't think,
so many more per acre than.
I don't think even volume would mean anything because it's the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had, you know, you just have to put $385,000 houses. And if you don't have a like $385,000 house.
And so if you're stuck and you're only, building two on that lot, you're gonna have to sell those for a lot more than
Yeah,
$385.
you're gonna build a 500, 700.
That's my point. That's my point right there.
We got
Okay.
one down here, what is it, 750,000 he's asking for?
No idea.
Randy does.
The only,
Am I making sense, Andrew? Do you understand what I'm asking?
you are, but let me, we're also talking about current market forces, right?
Yes.
Interest rates are high, it's gonna be hard to sell things. This is a long-term document. And the way I think we had looked at it was long-term. And I'll put it this way, R1 gets a little stabilized, you know you're getting 1 unit per acre. Well-known, easily known, right? You're actually increasing the density allowed in R2, making that zoning district more viable, candidly. Right now, it's like 1.5-ish, you know, basically. And then R3, the only assumption in your argument, Mayor, that I would push back on is there's not a lot zoned R3 in this town. And we're not advocating that the town as a whole needs to be zoned R3. This reduction in density, I think, could be wrong. Based upon feedback we've gotten, could make R3 more palatable. That it's not going to be 8, 9, 10 units per acre. You're saying it's 5. And a large part of that site's not developed, keeping those infrastructure costs lower. And the lot sizes are a little bit smaller, but you're not just jamming houses on the entirety of the lot. You're keeping a 30% open space, and you're capping it at 5. So I think under your premise, which I don't have an issue with, I think it's very good analysis, but you're assuming everything's R3 when it's not. And I think that's being able to have a middle ground there of, hey, maybe this is appropriate for R2, and they can get 3 units per acre. Maybe that works here versus, you know, and then you go to R3, 5 units per acre, which I think we've all seen, especially the councils had extreme reticence under the current zoning for R3 because of the density. This kind of brings that down to perhaps, I could be wrong again, maybe that's not enough for the council to accept, but if you're looking at how do we have remotely any affordable housing, I would argue that this actually helps that in the long run. Now, I'm not a builder, not a developer, maybe the costs are the costs, and it is what it is, but this does allow for smaller lots, clustering, as Jeff said, while maintaining our woodland protection, our landscaping and open spaces, allowing for formal open spaces, and, you know.
Well, have we already done the open space, right?
It's going up to the council. It has not been approved yet.
Now, right? Yes.
So it would make things more family-oriented too, with the open spaces and.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I like the open.
Maybe
all the
someone's
open
willing to
space, yeah.
pay that price for that house, even though it's on a smaller lot. If there are open spaces, then just a sea of houses, right? Maybe. Again, this is more zoning policy versus it's not getting into the capitalist side of things, but it's saying what do you want your town to look like and what density do you want? That's the fundamental core of what this is, what we've been building to with, as Jeff said, these building blocks. So the things you're seeing them for a reason. It's coming up because this is the feedback that we received from you, from the council, from these discussions of how do you affect what you're seeing in terms of what gets submitted by changing your zoning ordinance and your subdivision regulations. I mean, just to preview, the next topic is parking requirements to make sure that there's not, and it was brought up in public comment, when you have 2 spots per unit, where do guests go? That's getting addressed. I mean, these are all things that are building on each other that are designed to interplay with each other. So, Mayor, I get the concern, but I only push back in that I think it actually could alleviate some of that concern by allowing R2 and R3 to be a little bit more palatable. It may not be, but I think it might because the density needs to be adjusted.
I like that. Don't get me wrong, I'd rather see people live like that, and I like that. I just don't want us to, like I keep saying, there are young people I know that are looking for houses now. They're married, they're their first home, you know, and it's hard right now, and that's not our fault. I know that. I don't think, actually, in the city limits, you see that many R1s anyway. I mean, those are, the big lot sizes just don't exist in city limits unless you already have one, you know, and they're pretty, this doesn't have anything to do, but when I ride through town, and I go up down the side streets for just one reason or another, I love the older, the bigger lots and the older trees, and I love that. But you don't, now, they're not generally built like that. I think I've just cut it off. Maybe I'm talking in circles. I might be, but I just, that's all I want to say is, I like all of this. I just want to make sure that we don't price people out of housing.
I think that, and I may be like way out in left field, but
I think I am. But go ahead.
can get that together. Builders, if this is what's in place, builders know that going into purchasing a piece of land. And if that land is priced more than they want to pay for it, they're not going to do it. They're going to counter offer. And the landowners are going to figure out that they've got to drop the prices of that land. I think that is what this can help, is that because right now the cost of land is what is so prohibitive. Land itself is just out of sight. And if nothing else, it would help with the fact that you can't ask $100,000 for 1 acre and keep getting it, and, you know, that's just where I'm at.
A lot of it is speculation on my part, I know, and on that part, speculation. We don't, those things we speculate and hope, so, I like everything else about it. That was my only concern.
It'll all take care of itself.
Well, I hope so.
This market, but we
It is this
we would
market.
ask for a recommendation up or down today, because we do want to take this and the open space standards to council in August, because I do think they need to be looked at the same time. So if that's at the will of the planning commission, we'd ask for some recommendation, favorable or unfavorable.
I'm going to make a recommendation that we send it up to council favorably.
All right, I have a motion. Here's the second.
I'll second.
And a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we'll send that to the council. Next is, consideration the zoning ordinance number 4. Mr. Amanda.
Yes. Okay, so this is, as Ms. Janet alluded to, there has been some conversation over the last several months about parking and our parking standards, and as we see some of these larger developments coming in, that there aren't provisions made for overflow parking. And what this ordinance is proposing is to modify our current residential parking requirements, excuse me, by deleting points A, B, D, and E of Article 4, Section 4.010 in their entirety, and replacing them with the following language, which would read that all residential uses, the minimum parking requirement shall be calculated based on the number of bedrooms, as follows, with each required spot being a minimum of 10 by 20 in size, which is our current minimum spot size. For 1 bedroom, you would have 1 resident parking spot with 0.5 spot required for overflow parking. 2 bedrooms, 2 spots with 1 spot required for an overflow parking spot. 3 bedrooms, 3 spots, 1.5 spot of required overflow. 4+ bedrooms, 4 spots would be required for the resident parking, and then 2 spots required for overflow. So what this would mean is that if you had a 3-bedroom townhome, you would be required to provide 3 residential spots but then also be required to put aside 1.5 spots somewhere on the site to accommodate guests and for overflow parking. It doesn't require or mandate where that overflow parking would go. It would just need to be on the site available for residents and overflow use. It also has language in there just allowing staff to make any administrative, non-substantive changes necessary in numbering in order to insert the new language. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
How do you do a hack a spot?
That was gonna be my question.
I know, I do not like fractions.
I push
Make
the
me do
half
it.
spot.
Because it's never gonna just be one.
Or
'Cause
just two people?
You just round up.
Which, why you wouldn't just go with one, but I lost the battle.
But if you have a development that has 30 units,
Mhm.
it's gonna be 30 times 0.5, so you have to have an additional 15. That's that math.
Feel free to modify that to 1. If it makes your heart happy, you do it.
You know, I see that happening already, just in an older, well, it's still pretty new. It's in Kingston Springs, it's the only place that, and there's one, it's behind the Sky King Pizza. And my daughter has a townhome there. And so they pretty much, I mean, it's not designated, this is yours, causes a problem with her sometimes, but it's pretty much that it's accepted that there's 2 parking spaces for each townhome. Now, if I go over there, there are emptier parking spaces down in front of some other townhomes. Those townhomes they have basements or, so their parking spaces really are down there, so I can always go there and park, but I mean, I can see how that works.
Interestingly, on a completely unrelated thing, I was looking at our census tract data for a grant that I'm working on for you guys, and it looks like even for a 2-bedroom, the average number of vehicles for like a 2-bedroom, 1.5 is 3 vehicles.
Yeah.
So the numbers are not really off. Our current regulations don't require overflow parking. And that was one thing, poor Alex, who's always the guinea pig for a lot of these things, but at least with me, he has been. And he's been really good through the iterations of 70 at church, but in trying to attract these more amenitized developments that we want, a lot of times you'll have a developer that's good to work with that will see the wisdom that, yes, you need to have a place for people to park. Now, at 70 Church, you happen to have the commercial development that you have kind of a nice, it just kind of works where you've got, some shared opportunities there. But there have been other developments that I've worked on in other towns where you just, it's just him and haw, and I mean, you've got an amenity that's way, 2 miles away from point to point, and it's going, that kind of defeats the purpose unless you live just right there, so, maybe that just kind of helps move in the right direction.
Okay, question, do we count the garage and their driveway, we count that as 2? So there needs to be something in front, or the other spaces would just be somewhere in that development?
Right.
That if I had company?
Right, so, and depending on the width of the driveway,
Yeah.
you might
Yeah.
have, the width of the driveway being wide enough to accommodate 2 cars, and then you've got, the garage itself accommodates the 3rd. So you've got your residential parking, if it's a 3-bedroom, which seems to be a more common product right now, you've got that right there, because
Yeah.
we don't generally allow on-street parking. If it's a PUD or whatnot, that's a little bit different maybe, but yes, they just need to accommodate for it on the site itself.
Okay.
And there won't be a sign saying in front of the retail, you can't park here, the store only.
We don't get into matters of signage, that's a civil.
Just like my I went to a, anniversary party in this humongous development in Mount Juliet. And all of their overflow parking is at their community center, which is placed, several of them, all through the entire development. So like, we pulled up at the street, and they had their teenagers who were more than happy to take the cars and park them, and then went back and got
Yeah.
them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't that far for the vehicles, but that's where they put theirs.
Yeah.
Okay, did I hear a motion to send this over to the council?
I make a motion to send on to the council,
I have a motion, I hear a second.
I'll second.
And a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed? Okay, send that to the council. Okay. Consider the proposal of the Town of White Bluff Transportation Safety Act plan. Mr. Jeff.
Yes, sir. So I sent you the safety action plan document several days ago. This is, we talked about this primarily at the council level, but TDOT now requires that we have what they call a transportation safety action plan in place before you can apply for more TDOT construction or demonstration type grants. We would like to be able to remain competitive in those activities. And so the town contracted with AECOM engineering firm to conduct this transportation safety action plan. Basically, they looked at the street infrastructure in White Bluff, and we did a lot of public outreach through community meeting at the bid center and online. So that process took several months. The mayor was on the committee for this. Brian Hill, council member, was on the committee. Debbie on the planning commission was on the committee, Amanda and I, and went through that process, and we feel like this is a good plan to work from. They've identified areas. What I find encouraging is of the 50-some odd miles of road in White Bluff, the major problems are occurring on about 6 miles of roadway. So that's where we would start to focus our activities moving forward. And so this, the plan that came out was because of timing of a upcoming TDOT grant round, we actually presented this to the council at last month's meeting. We would normally have come here first, but just because of the timing, we wanted to try to make this work. So the council did endorse the plan. You have a resolution in your packet that we're asking you to approve the plan, and then we'll move forward with identifying priority areas and application of grant.
Okay. You wanna have any more questions on that one? All right,
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
all right, I have a motion to approve the Transportation Safety Act. I hear a second.
A second.
And a second. Any more comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, update the Jazz Center retail strip final plat projection has been withdrawn. Is that right, Mr. Jeff?
Yes, sir. So last month, you all reviewed a final plat, and because of deficiencies, you tabled that until this month, and over the past month, we got notification from Mr. Chet Rhodes, who was here. They've withdrawn wanted to give you the email showing you that is now.
Okay. Anything else? Anything I might have? If not, we'll call this planning commission meeting to.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Do that one.
Thank you for getting me. Yeah, I think it's, well, let's see that late, that guy.